So, Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer did bad things. You know what? It's fine. I will just upload this afterwards, and this is fine. Just first live stream just went to shit. So I'll just do it over here. And okay, so this is a continuation of episode 1 of the live stream. Okay, so it has been claimed that Dahmer was deprived of attention as an infant. Other sources, however, suggest that he was doted upon as an infant and toddler by both of his parents, although his mother was known to be tense, greedy for both attention and pity, and argumentative with her husband and their neighbors. Which doesn't really sound that bad. Like once you see it and like say it out loud. But it's still bad. But could I'm not gonna say it could have been worse. There is a glitter in my eyebrow. Okay. As Dahmer entered first grade, Joyce, his mom, began to spend an increasingly amount of time in bed, recovering from weakness. Don't really know what weakness. It doesn't really say. But it's fine. Itches. Oh my god. Okay, so I can. So once I start, I have to start and get going. I can't. I can't just like mess around and stuff. But that's fine. It's fine. So Linnell's university studies kept him away from home much of the time but whenever he was home, his wife, a hypochondriac who suffered from depression, demanded constant attention. But like that's okay. But like it's like depression and having like hypochondriac, like tendencies. That's not good. Uh, there. Demanding constant attention. She reportedly worked herself into a state of anxiety over trivial matters simply to appease her husband. She even once attempted suicide with Equinil. Equinil constantly neither parent devoted much time to their son. Consequently, they never like paid attention to Jeffrey. So this is the Milani concealer, like Conceal and Perfect. I also use it as an eyeshadow primer because it's sticky, but it's also like it covers up like my freckles on my lid pretty well, but you can still see them. Dahmer used to be an energetic and happy little man, happy little boy, but at the age of 4, that drastically changed whenever he went into surgery to repair a double hernia. Right, a double hernia. Which 4 years old and having a hernia, like how much stress were you under? At 4 years old, he was having surgery to correct a hernia. He recalled extreme tension and arguments between his parents during his early years at elementary school. He was regarded as quiet and timid, so basically just like shy to himself, like very introverted. Which there's nothing wrong with being introverted. I am introverted as I do this. So, at elementary school, oh, quiet and timid, basically shy boy. One teacher said she sensed he felt neglected because of his mother's illness. Nonetheless, in grade school, Dahmer did have a small number of friends, so he had like a small group of friends to like keep him, like sane, I would say. Sane. Wow, Jeffrey Dahmer insane. Not two things that you think would be in the same sentence, but they are now. Uh, So, from an early age, Dahmer manifested an interest in dead animals, which that's going to be a theme, like a theme for like serial killers is just like dead animals and all that, which I don't know why. I don't know why it was such like a big thing for serial killers to just like, hey, I'm gonna kill a cat, or just like, hey, I'm gonna kill this bird. but it's just, oh, don't kill animals. Don't kill animals unless you absolutely have to. Or if you're hunting. And even then, hunt with a damn license. Like, it's not that hard to get a license to kill big game, like deer and stuff. But don't kill animals just for the hell of it. Because that's gonna get you in trouble. It's gonna get you in a lot of trouble. Got my brushes out. I'm actually gonna do like contour now. Sorry, there's scissors. Feeling a little vivacious today. Gonna do some contour. Contour before eyes, I know. Big thing. Oh my god. He initially, Jeffrey Dahmer, back to Jeffrey Dahmer, he initially collected large insects and stuff, like big beetles, dragonflies, and butterflies in jars. Later, he collected animal carcasses from the roadside, so he went outside and he picked up some damn roadkill. Which, there's... I don't want to say that there's nothing wrong with that, but there's something wrong with that. Just saying. Like, am I saying that it's a good thing? No, it's not a good thing. I'm just saying that there's something wrong. Occasionally accompanied by one or more friends, he dismembered these animals either at home or in nearby woodland. Like, if you and your friends are going out in the woods and just saying, "Hey, let's decapitate this dead raccoon," get better friends, please. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but get better friends. According to one friend, Dahmer dismembered these animals and stored the parts in jars in the family tool shed, explaining that he was curious as to how animals fitted together. Sure. In one instance, Jeffrey decapitated the carcass of a dog before nailing the body to a tree and impaling the skull on a stake beside a wooden cross in the woods near his house. Jeffrey, you kind of fucked up, man. Sorry, I put on a video so that way I have something to listen to while I do my makeup. There you go. So anyway, Jeffrey Dahmer, dog head on a spike. You know, like a wooden stake, like the sharp end is going up into like the dog's. You don't need like that image in your brain. But I guess now you do. It's fine. It's fine. Just. And according to Linnell, Dahmer was oddly thrilled by the sound of the bones made. You know, like bones grinding against each other. Like I don't know if you need like that sound in your brain, but it's not a fun sound to hear. But it happened. It happened. It's ugh. Okay, so and became Jeffrey Dahmer also became preoccupied with animal bones. He occasionally searched beneath and around the family home for additional bones and explored the bodies of live animals to discover where their bones were located. So he basically did small animal anatomy by himself and not in a classroom. That's something to like put into perspective. And I don't know how old he was, but ugh. Like he was like middle school, like around that age, and he was like decapitating dogs and doing small animal anatomy. He's just all kinds of effed up in the head. He just like, Miss Monday, you don't say. And I was like, yeah. You know what, that's what I'm going to be called, Miss Monday, because it's short and the last thing is Monday. So, it's gonna. You know what, just call me Miss Monday. It's fine. Oh, I'm gonna sneeze. Don't sneeze. Don't sneeze. It's gonna be loud. It's fine. This is fine. Wow, it is hard to like talk and do your makeup at the exact same time, but we gotta do it. Just contouring my nose like it's the most normal thing in the world. Okay, let's continue on telling you about Mr. Jeffrey Dahmer over here. So in October of 1966, the family moved to Doylestown, Ohio, which I don't know how far that is from me. And I don't feel like looking it up right now, but I will look it up afterwards. When Joyce gave birth in December, Jeffrey was allowed to choose the name of his new baby brother. He chose the name David. The same year, Linnell earned his degree and started work as an analytical chemist in nearby Akron, Ohio. Oh, so Doylestown is an hour and so away from me. That's lovely. That's awesome. Do you see that? Yeah, it's fine. Just isn't that? In 1968, the family moved to Bath Township, Ohio. 2 years later, during a chicken dinner, Joffrey asked Linnell what would happen if chicken bones were placed in bleach. And, his dad, Linnell, wasn't just like, oh, red flag. He was actually just I wouldn't say proud of Jeffrey that he actually showed an interest in what he does, but he was a little bit pleased with his curiosity, which understandable. He's a dad and stuff, and bones and bleach is technically have some things to do with chemistry and stuff, but he was 8. Jeffrey was 8. Like, no 8-year-old should be interested in bleaching some bones of a chicken. 8-year-olds should be interested in bugs on the ground. Okay, so his father was pleased by Dahmer's curiosity, demonstrated how to safely bleach and preserve animal bones. Dahmer then incorporated these techniques into his bone collecting. Bone collecting. I don't know how to feel about that. Sorry. Adolescence and high school. From his freshman year at Revere High School, Dahmer was seen as an outcast. At 14, he began drinking beer and hard liquor in school. He told a classmate it was his medicine. So Jeffrey Dahmer likes his sauce at 14. Like, kids don't drink at 14, don't do drugs at 14 unless they're prescribed. And considering that he called the alcohol his medicine, don't do that either. Don't lie. Say that, like, own up to your shit. Like, you're gonna get in a lot less trouble if you just own up to stuff than lying about it. That actually works. We're keeping it. So, okay, so oddly, although largely uncommunicated in his freshman year, Jeffrey Dahmer was seen by staff as polite and highly intelligent, but with average grades. So, like, it wasn't, he didn't like apply himself that much in school, but he did get like good grades and stuff. Which good for him, considering that I believe his IQ was in the upper 130s. Upper 120s, lower 130s, I believe. He was a keen tennis player and played briefly in the high school band. I wonder what instrument he would have played. Like, what instrument does he look like he would play? Clarinet or saxophone. He looks like that type of person to like play a reed instrument. Which is fine and all, but I'm not saying that all either reed players are serial killers, but in Jeffrey's case, like, he just has like that face for it. There. So I'm going to be using my go-to palette, which is the James Charles palette. James Charles Morphe palette. And with my cheap ass brushes. So, let's go there. Let's go there. That. There we go. That in, and then move this over here so that way I'm not. Oh, that's lighting. The lights. Okay, so when Jeffrey reached puberty, like adolescence, like young man ages and stuff. I hate to clean my brushes since I use them for like work. And I used to work at a haunted house, and I'm going back next year. So I should actually really clean my brushes. Just toss that in there. It's fine. It's fine. When he reached puberty, Jeffrey discovered that he was gay, which there's nothing wrong with that. I am bisexual and happily bisexual, might I add. But he did not tell his parents because still 1960s, 1970s, it wasn't mainstream to openly be gay and bisexual and queer and all that. It really wasn't, which is kind of sad because like you hear like these stories about like these 70-year-old men and women coming out that have had children and marriages and to like men and stuff, and they're just now coming out, which it's nice that they get to be like fully themselves now, but they couldn't back then, which ugh. Couldn't imagine going like 78 years and then realize that, oh, I'm gay, but it's not my life. And luckily that I have grown up in a like set of years where the LGBTQ plus community is very mainstream and very open to like new people and stuff. Just using it as bullies to like fix the brow hairs. In his early teens, he had a brief relationship with another teenage boy, although they never had like sex and stuff. By his later admission, Joffrey began fantasizing about dominating and controlling a completely submissive male partner. So, like, nothing wrong with like finding like what you like sexually and stuff. But And these fantasies gradually became intertwined with dissection. Like small animal dissection. Yeah, back to that, but more so using humans as subjects and not dead animal. Eh. Ow. Sorry, there's a knot. My hair's dry and it's unwashed. Oh, it's going in the bun. God. Okay, there we go. I should get started on my episode. It's fine. Whoa, 91 million. 91 million. Okay, so when Jeffrey was about 16, he conceived a fantasy of rendering unconscious a particular male jogger that he found attractive. He fancied like this male jogger that jogged around his house, which, just a guy getting in shape, but he fantasized about, basically raping him and stuff, which Jeffrey Dahmer later on did rape and kill like a bunch of young men, but we will get to that later because I have names and I have dates. Uh, and then making sexual use of his body. So yeah. On one occasion, Dahmer concealed himself in bushes with a baseball bat to lay in wait for this man. However, he did not pass on that particular day, and Dahmer later said that this was his first official attempt at like braining someone and like harming them. Despite being regarded as a loner and an oddball among his peers at his high school, Jeffrey became something of a class clown who often staged pranks, which later became known as doing a Dahmer. Which, wow. These included bleeding and simulating epileptic seizures or cerebral palsy at school and local stores, which don't do that. Don't fucking do that. Just don't. Like, that's disrespectful and rude to people who do have, like, epileptic seizures and cerebral palsy. Because they can't help that. There's medicine today to, like, lessen, like, the effects of it, but don't do it. Don't do that. No. Stop. You're gonna get in trouble if you do that. Whether it's by the person that has it, the person's parents, the school, or anyone around you, or me. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's not nice, and it could actually, like, really harm someone's feelings. And you don't know, like, what they're going through at home. You don't know, like, what anyone's going through, like, in their personal lives. And you don't know, like, whether, like, one thing would, you know, like, set them off to, like, do something that they don't want to do. Ugh. Uh, by 1977, his grades, you know, like, went downhill and stuff. What's going on with Bobby? His grades, you know, like, declined, which, you know, he was, like, a solid student and stuff. But his parents hired a private tutor with limited success because Jeffrey just, like, said, I don't give a shit. That same year, in an attempt to save their marriage, his parents attended counseling sessions and they continued to quarrel frequently. And then, when his father, Linnell, discovered Joyce had engaged in a brief affair in September of 1977, they both decided to divorce. Which, you know, kind of, no, it's like 100% understandable, but at least that they try to, like, save things, like, save face and all that for, like, their children. This isn't there. Let me get my glasses because this is. Yes, we're getting the glasses, honey. So they both decided to divorce, telling the sons they wished to do it amicably. There it is, amicably. Linnell then moved out of the house in early of 1978. And then May of that same year, Dahmer graduated from high school. A few weeks before his graduation, though, one of his teachers observed Dahmer sitting close to the school parking lot, drinking several cans of beer. Like, don't do that. Like, it's, don't drink before you drive. Don't drink and drive. Ow, that hurt. Bailey! Good lord. I will put the link down to the video that I'm listening to while I'm doing my makeup. And then you can understand why I just laughed and almost killed myself with saliva. Oh my god, that actually hurt. Television. I haven't done my eyebrows, and that's why I'm gonna. You know what? Put down the blending brush, pick up the eyebrow pencil, or like the angled eyeliner pencil. This is what I pencil brush. This is what I use to do like liner for eyeshadows and stuff, and also my brows because I like it. I like doing it like that. There we go. So, drinking several cans of beer, said that. And then when the teacher threatened to report the matter, Dahmer informed him that he was experiencing a lot of problems at home, and that the school's guidance counselor was aware of them. That spring, Joyce and David moved out of the family home to live with relatives. Dahmer had just turned 18 and remained in the family home alone. Yeah, alone in the family home for I think until he was caught. Yeah. Which was 70 to 91. He was caught in 91, and then 3 years later he was killed by a fellow inmate. Okay, so the late teens. Oh, I didn't finish that. Dahmer's parents' divorce was finalized on July 24th, 1978, and Joyce was awarded custody of her younger son with alimony payments. So the mom got the son. So it's normal because judges don't really want to take away a mother's son if she can provide for them, but his dad has to pay alimony, then child support and all that. I believe it's every month that they have to do child support. And I also think that his dad also got visitation rights. But it doesn't say It doesn't readily say that, hey, yeah, he also got visitation rights, so that way he can be in his son's life. Man. Okay, so late teens and early 20s. His very first murder, which late teens, like 18 to 20, and committing a murder in like the span of like 2 years, like in the span of like those 2 years. Ugh. Okay, so his first victim was Stephen Hicks. I keep locking my phone and I want to listen to this video. Dahmer committed his first murder that same year, 1978, 3 weeks after he graduated high school. 3 damn weeks after he graduated. Like, most kids are just like, yeah, let's go party, let's get drunk, let's get shit-faced. Jeffrey's just like, you know what? I'm gonna commit a murder, and I'm gonna do it. Like, I don't know what goes through serial killers' minds that just like say, you know what? I'll do this today. I am going to literally F up my future by committing a crime. And I don't wish to understand that. Well, I do wish to understand that, but they can't like explain because most of them are dead or in jail, and I don't want to like randomly show up to a serial killer and say, "Hey, what made you want to kill this bitch?" Sorry, my dog is right next to me and she's whining for attention. And my cat. I have lost my cat. I think he's in the laundry room since the door back there is open. But, okay. 3 weeks after his graduation, he killed someone. Yeah. At the time, he was living alone in the family home in Bath, Ohio. Following their decision to divorce, Linnell temporarily lived in a nearby motel, and Joyce relocated to Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, with his younger brother David. Shh! Shut up! Ruby! And agreed to accompany Dahmer to his house. According to Dahmer, after several hours of drinking and listening to music. Wait. Oh. On June 18th, Dahmer picked up a hitchhiker named Stephen Mark Hicks, who was almost 19. So 18 is the consenting age in America. I believe back then it was 16. But don't quote me on that because I don't want to get in trouble. course, that's off balance. Why would it be? And of course, I'm trying to film a video. But anyway, Stephen Mark Hicks, almost 18, almost 19. I believe he was 3 weeks away from being 18. Also, don't quote me on that. Dahmer lured the youth into his house on the pretext that the two men of drinking together. Buddy, buddy, hey, have a few brewskis and all that. I never say brewskis, and I'm not being insensitive. This is just, once again, this is how I process information. Shut up. So, God, browse on now. I should really just get on with it, but we have a lot of information to go through too, so that's why I should get the ball rolling on this. Hicks, who had been hitchhiking to a rock concert at Chippewa Lake Park, agreed to accompany Dahmer to his house. And according to Dahmer, after several hours of drinking and listening to music, Hicks wanted to leave, but Dahmer did not want him to leave. And in response to that, Dahmer bludgeoned Hicks with a 10-pound dumbbell, which pretty hefty boy. He then later stated that he struck Hicks twice from behind with the dumbbell as Hicks sat upon a chair. When Hicks fell unconscious, Dahmer strangled him to death with the bar of the dumbbell, stripped him naked before masturbating as he stood above the corpse. The following day, Dahmer dissected Hicks's body in his basement. He later burned the remains in a shallow grave. Not burned, buried in a shallow grave in his backyard. I feel like I should write this stuff down. You know what? That's exactly what I'm going to do. I have this notebook where I write down, the stream outlines and stuff, or the video outlines. But I'm also going to write down an interesting little thing about the serial killers, so that way I can recant it if I need to. So, Stephen Mark Hicks, 18 plus, buried in Dahmer's backyard. And then June 18th, 1978. There we go. I also might make a little timeline out of it, but it's fine. So, he dissected, buried him in a shallow grave in his backyard before several weeks later, he unearthed the remains and started filleting the flesh, paring the flesh from the bones. Once again, don't do this, people. you will get caught and you will get in very big trouble. Like, if you want to dissect an animal, take like a biology course or some shit. Don't kill people. Or, just like don't kill people. Don't kill people. But anyway. Sorry, phone's going off. Be crazy. And my boyfriend wanted to know if I'm still going, so. So he was paring the flesh from Stephen Hicks's bones and stuff. Which, several weeks after being married, I don't think that there was a lot of flesh on there, but I could be wrong. Like, I don't know, like, the composition rate that it was going through, but it's still a thing. Hang on, my video decided to say, hey, I'm not going to play anymore. There we go. I got like a bunch of stories about serial killers. So, anyway, let's keep going. He dissolved the flesh in acid before flushing the solution down a toilet. He crushed the bones with a sledgehammer and scattered them in the woods behind the family house. Which, I don't know what acid does to like the plumbing and stuff, but so 6 weeks after the murder of Hicks, Jeffrey's father and his fiancee returned to the family house, where they discovered Jeffrey living alone, like, big thing. He was like 18. He was allowed to like live alone at the time, but it was just like a shocker. Just like, hey, my son's living alone in this house, and there's a fucking smell in the air. Okay, that August, Jeffrey. Dahmer enrolled at Ohio State University, hoping to major in business, which, good for him. Good for him. Very good for him. So Dahmer's sole term at OSU was completely unproductive, largely because of his persistent alcohol abuse throughout the majority of the term. He received failing grades in Introduction to Anthropology, Classical Civilizations, and administrative science, which college courses are different from like high school courses, but he just like didn't apply himself because he was drunk all the time and he had other things on the brain like murder. So continuing, the only course Dahmer was successful at was riflery, which is guns, which lovely. That's all. That's another red flag. Which, get better hobbies. There are a bunch of other better hobbies that he could have done. Like stamp collecting. No one becomes a serial killer just from collecting stamps. I might be wrong. Don't come after me. I don't want to be wrong about information that like people come after me in the comments like, actually there was a serial killer so and so he collected stamps. Like I kind of care, yet I don't care because this is just for fun for me. It's just me talking about creepy shit and doing my makeup. Okay. So riflery had a grade of B minus, which pretty damn good, but his overall GPA was 0.45 out of 4.0. On one occasion, Linnell, his father, paid a surprise visit to his son only to find his room strewn with empty liquor bottles. Despite his father having paid in advance for the second term, Dahmer dropped out of college just after 3 months. Which, like, if college isn't for you, don't force it. Like, if it's not for you, don't try to, like, make it for you, since you're going to have, like, a hard time, and it's not going to be fun. Oh! Hang on. In January of the following year, 1979, on his father's urging and begging, Dahmer enlisted in the United States Army, where he was trained as a medical specialist at Fort Sam Hudson in San Antonio, Texas. On July 13th of the same year, he was stationed in Baumholder, West Germany. So he did a tour. He did a tour in West Germany where he served as a combat medic in the 2nd Battalion, 68th Armored Regiment, the 8th Infantry Division, which it's like the 8th Infantry, the 68th, regiment. It was further back, and they were also like the 2nd Battalion. It was like the first one. So he was back there, but it was still like a tour in Germany, which good for him. Thank you for helping, but also fuck you, Jeffrey Dahmer. And according to published reports, in Dahmer's first year of service, he was an average or slightly above average soldier. Okay. 2 soldiers attested to being raped by Dahmer while in the army. One stated in 2010 that Dahmer had repeatedly raped him over a 17-month period while they were both stationed at Baumholder, while another soldier believes Dahmer drugged and also raped him inside an armored personal carrier in 1979. Sorry, it's just a lot. Owing to Dahmer's repeated alcohol abuse, his performance deteriorated, and in March of 1981, he was deemed unsuitable for military service and later discharged from the army. He received an honorable discharge, as his superiors did not believe that any problems Dahmer had in the army would be acceptable or be applicable in his civilian life. Like drug, like alcohol problem. So what? Not that big. It's a big thing, but
don't do it. Then on March 24th of the same year that he was discharged, Dahmer was sent to Fort Jackson, South Carolina for a debriefing and provided with a plane ticket to travel anywhere in the country. Dahmer later told police he felt he could not return home to face his father, so he opted to travel to Miami Beach, Florida. Both because he was tired of the cold and in an attempt to live by his own means. Which, fine. It's fine. It actually snowed here like 3 days in a row, and it was so nice, but it was so cold because of like that wind. Anyway, in Florida, Dahmer found employment as a delicacy. I'll put it in the description. Y'all can drag me there. So, thinking I'm doing like red today, and I don't know why. You know what? Let's just do yellow and orange
Because I already got brown there.
but let's just finish this off because we're on a roll. He also rented a room in a nearby motel. Jeffrey spent most of his salary on alcohol and was soon evicted from the motel for non-payment, which, hey, you damn right. Oh, hi. Sorry, my cat appeared. He initially spent his evenings on the beach as he continued to work at a sandwich shop until phoning his father and asking him to return to Ohio in September of the same year. So let's get this going. Let's do yellow first so that way I can blend it into brown with the orange. Everything's just falling because I'm tired and this table's like very small. Okay, so return to Ohio and then relocating to Wisconsin, the West Allis area of Wisconsin, I believe. After his return to Ohio, Jeffrey Dahmer initially resided with his father and stepmother and insisted on being delegated numerous chores to occupy his time while he looked for work. He continued to drink heavily, and 2 weeks after his return, he was arrested for drunken disorderly conduct, for which he was fined $60 and given a suspended 10-day jail sentence. So basically just like a slap on the wrist, which not really a big deal for like drunken disorderly conduct. And like they didn't like know what was going on behind the scenes. Which good for them that they didn't know yet, but also try to like look at his background, which I believe that they did, and they're just like, oh, military man, can't do nothing wrong. Which isn't the case because, you know, serial killer and cannibal
So, let's continue the story of Jeffrey Dahmer. While hang on, my dog is barking at my cat. Hey, Max, get out. Go, stay up there. Whoop.
Let me pick up my glasses while I'm up as well. Jeffrey Dahmer tried unsuccessfully to wean his son off of alcohol, and in December of 1981, he and Dahmer's stepmother sent him to live with his grandmother in West Allis, Wisconsin. Dahmer's grandmother was the only family member to whom he displayed any affection to. I think he was just like very close to her. They hoped that her influence plus a change in scenery might persuade him to refrain from abusing alcohol, find a job, and, live as a responsible adult. Which, nothing really wrong with, like, wanting that for your son. But, it didn't work in the end, so that's kind of just like a big, hey, F you to them. Initially, Dahmer's living arrangements with his grandmother were harmonious. He accompanied her to church, willingly did chores around the house, actively sought out work, and abided by most of her house rules, although he did continue to drink and smoke. Which, Grandma, sorry, but I'm going to keep doing this. I know that it's not in the rules, but it's gonna happen. Because, like, drinking and smoking are, like, very bad habits to have. I do smoke, but I'm not, like, addicted to it. I only do it when, like, my anxiety is high and stuff. It helps. This new influence in his life initially brought results in an early 1982, Dahmer found employment as a blood worker. That sounds wrong. A phlebotomist. Someone that takes blood. At the Milwaukee Blood Plasma Center, he held the job for a total of 10 months before being laid off. So, a job and being laid off after 10 months. So, that's bad. Don't lay people off. And then Dahmer remained unemployed for over 2 years, during which he lived upon whatever money his grandmother gave him, which, good for grandma. Good for grandma that she actually, like, helped him out. Like, most people wouldn't just, like, help him out, but he was laid off, so. Shortly before losing his job at the Blood Plasma Center, Dahmer was arrested for indecent exposure. That was on August 7th, 1982. August 7th, 1982. Arrested for indecent exposure to a group or a crowd of 25 women and children, and for this incident he was convicted and fined $50 plus court costs, which slap on the wrist is, like, bad. And then January of 1985, he was actually hired as a mixer at the Milwaukee Ambrosia Chocolate Factory. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory up here. But where he worked from 11 to 7 a.m., so graveyard shift 6 nights a week, with Saturday evenings off. Shortly after, Dahmer found this employment. An incident occurred in which he was propositioned by another man while sitting reading in the West Avis Public Library. The stranger threw him a note offering to perform Filato on him. Which I believe Filato was just like, hey, I'm going to give you a blowjob and stuff. Can I say that? I don't think I can. I'll bleep it out. Although Dahmer did not respond to this proposition, the incident stirred in his mind the fantasies of control and dominance he had developed as a teenager, and he began familiarizing himself with Milwaukee's local gay bars and bathhouses and bookstores. He was also known to have stolen a male mannequin, like a plastic man, from a local department store. Which he briefly used for stimulation, like sexual stimulation, until his grandmother discovered the item stowed in a closet and demanded that he discard it. I just imagine this very old lady opening up a closet and just asking Jeffrey, the hell is this? And why do you have it? And then Jeffrey's just like, I don't know, that's not mine. And then grandma's just like, get rid of it. Just I don't want it in my house. Get rid of it. By late 1985, Dahmer had begun to regularly frequent bathhouses, which he later described as being relaxing places. But during his sexual encounters, he became frustrated at his partner's moving during the sexual act. Following his arrest, he stated, I trained myself to view people as objects of pleasure instead of people. Which, people are people, don't make them into objects, don't objectify people, because that's wrong. And ugh. For this reason, beginning in June of the next year, 1986, he administered sleeping pills to his partners, giving them liquor laced with sedatives, then raping their unconscious bodies. After approximately 12 instances, the bathhouse's administration revoked Dahmer's membership, and he began to use hotel rooms to commit this practice. Which is all around bad and stuff. Don't roofie people. This might be 3 episodes worth of information. But let's keep going. Shortly after his membership of the bathhouses was revoked, he read a report in the newspaper regarding the upcoming funeral of an 18-year-old male. He conceived the idea of stealing the fleshy, interrated corpse and taking it home. According to Dahmer, he attempted to dig up the coffin, but found the soil too hard and abandoned the plan. In August of the same year, Dahmer was arrested for masturbating in front of 2 12-year-old boys as he stood close to the Kinnitic River. He initially admitted the offense and was again charged with indecent exposure, but quickly changed his story and claimed he had merely been urinating, unaware that they were witnesses. The charge was changed to disorderly conduct, and on March 10th of the following year, Jeffrey was sentenced to 1 year of probation with additional instructions he was to undergo counseling. Which, yeah. So let's do the killings and stuff. Okay, so November 20th, 1987, he encountered a 25-year-old man from Ontonagon, Michigan, called Stephen Tuomi. At a bar, persuaded him to go to the Ambassador Hotel in Milwaukee, where Dahmer had been renting a room for the evening. And Dahmer, according to Jeffrey, had no intention of murdering him, but rather intended to roofie him, date rape, drug him, and all that. And following morning he realized that, oh shit, he dead because of the black and blue bruises on his chest. Blood was also seeping from the corner of Stephen Tuomi's mouth, and Dahmer's fist in one forearm had extensively bruised. Dahmer stated he had no memory of having killed him, and later informed investors that he, and I quote, could not believe this had happened. Unquote. He later disposed of the body, Tuomi's body, by purchasing a large suitcase, transported the body to his grandma's house, where 1 week later he severed the head, arms, and legs from the torso. Then filleted the bones from the body before cutting the flesh into pieces small enough to handle. So he basically did what you do for hunting. He skinned the body, He then placed the flesh inside plastic garbage bags and wrapped the bones inside a sheet and pounded them into splinters with his sledgehammer. The entire dismemberment took him approximately 2 hours to complete, and he disposed of the remains, including the severed head, in the trash. For a total of 2 weeks following the murder, Dahmer retained the victim's head wrapped in a blanket. After 2 weeks, he boiled the head in a mixture of Solex, which is an alkali-based industrial detergent, and bleach in order to, retain it, preserve it, which he then used as stimulus for masturbation. Eventually, the skull was rendered too brittle by his bleaching process, so Dahmer just said, nah. After that murder, he actively began seeking victims, which he was encountered mostly by gay bars and all that, where he then lured them to his grandma's home and drugged them before raping them. And once the victims were, rendered unconscious by the sleeping pills, he then killed them by strangulation. 2 months after the first killing, he encountered a 14-year-old Native American male escort. $50. He was saying, "Hey, I'll pay you $50 to pose for new pictures for me." And then at his West Allis residence, the pair engaged in sexual activity before Dahmer drugged him and strangled him to the floor of the cellar. He then dismembered it in the same manner he had with Tuomi. He placed the remains except excluded skull in the trash. He boiled it and retained it before pulverizing it. March 24th, 1988, 22-year-old bisexual man Richard Guerretto outside a gay bar called the Phoenix. So same shit, different day. But this time Guerrero's body was dismembered within 24 hours of the murder, and the remains again were disposed of in the trash, and the skull again was retained before pulverizing several months later. April 23rd, young man lured a young man into his house. However, after giving the victim a drip of coffee, both he and the victim heard Dahmer's grandmother call, "Is that you, Jeff?" And then, Jeffrey tried to say, "Not, yeah, it's me. You're home alone." And then she just like, "You're not alone." She knew that he wasn't alone because track record says, "You're not alone." Da 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 da. And then because of that, Joffrey opted not to kill this victim. Instead, he was waiting until he became unconscious before taking him to the county general hospital and just tossed him. But like at least say like what happened. Just like, oh, he accidentally drank too much, or his drink was like laced with something, I think. He was like, they're gonna find it in his body. He's gonna find it in his system. September 1988. His grandma asked him to move out because of his habit of bringing gunmen to her house late at night and the foul smells emanating from both the basement and the garage, which where Dahmer was keeping the bodies and dismembering them, as well as the preserving things, like the fluids and stuff, because bleach has like that ammonia smell and stuff. Dahmer later then found a one-bedroom apartment on North 25th Street and moved into his residence on September 25th. Following day, he was arrested for drugging and sexually fondling a 13-year-old boy who he had lured into his home on the pretext of posing for nude photos. Which, why were people so keen on making like a quick buck just for like posing for nude photos? Like, if a strange man comes up to you and says, "Hey, here's $20. Let's take nude photos of you for science." Like, please just run away if someone comes up to you and does that to you. Anyway, in January of the following year, Dahmer was convicted of second-degree sexual assault and of enticing a child for immoral purposes. Sentencing for the assault was suspended until May of the same year, and on March 20th, Dahmer commenced a 10-day Easter absence from work, during which he moved back to his grandma's house. Which, why? Let's just keep going. I'm gonna have to use a particular brush because that's not working. So, continuing. Two months after his conviction and 2 months prior to his sentencing for the sexual assault, he murdered his fifth victim. He was a mixed race, 24-year-old aspiring model named Anthony Sears, who Dahmer met at a gay bar on March 25th of the same year. According to Dahmer, on this particular occasion, he was not looking to commit a crime. However, shortly before closing time that evening, Sears just started talking to me. Which, is fine. You can talk to whoever you want. but just be careful. Then Dahmer lured Sears to his grandma's home, where they engaged in oral sex before Dahmer drugged and strangled him. Like, Jeffrey, you got a lot of problems. So let's continue. 2 months before his scheduled on May 23rd, 1989, Dahmer was sentenced to 5 years probation and 1 year in the House of Correction, with work release permitted in order that he would be able to keep his job, and he was also required to register as a sex offender, which you like if you didn't do what you did in the first place to become a sex offender, maybe that wouldn't be on your permanent record and stuff. Let's continue. 2 months before his release from the work camp, Dahmer was paroled from his regiment. His 5 years probation imposed in 1989 began at this point, and while on release, Dahmer moved back in with his grandma once again. Before, in May of 1990, moving into the Oxford Apartments located on North 25th Street in Milwaukee. Although located in a high crime area, the apartment was close to his workplace, was furnished, and at $300 per month which included like all his bills and like utilities, excluding electricity, was economical. So, then 1990 killings, which is where he did most of his killings, I believe. May 24th, 1990, Dahmer moved out of his grandma's house and into his apartment, which is 213, anyone that wants to know. taking Sears' mummified head and genitalias with him. Within 1 week of him moving into his new apartment, Dahmer had killed his sixth victim, Raymond Smith. Smith was 32 years old. He was a male sex worker who Dahmer lured into his apartment with the promise of $50 for sex. Which, gotta have a higher rate for sex if you're gonna be that like that. But inside the apartment, he gave Smith a drink laced with several sleeping pills and manually strangled him. Following day, he purchased a Polaroid camera and took several pictures of Smith's body, depicting his dismemberment of Smith in his own bathroom. He then boiled the legs, arms, and pelvis in a steel kettle with Solex, which allowed him to rest the bones in the sink. Dahmer then disposed the remainder of the skeleton, excluding the skull, in a container filled with acid. He then spray painted Smith's skull, which he placed alongside the skull of Sears upon a black towel inside a metal filing cabinet. Oh, let me just file this under R. Which, don't kill people. Then, about a week after Smith's murder, on May 27th, he once again lured a young man into his apartment. On this occasion, however, Dahmer accidentally consumed the drink laden with the sedatives intended for consumption by his guest, also known as his victim, but anyway. When he awoke the following day, he realized that his intended victim, stole several items of his, like several items of clothing, $300, and a watch. Which, pretty pog if you ask me. But Dahmer never reported this incident to the police, but although on May 29th, 2 days afterwards, he divulged to his probation officer that he had been robbed. Which, maybe don't bring strange men into your house on the pretense of sex and then try to kill them. Because that's wrong, for one, and for two, if you drink something that is laced with drugs, maybe don't do it in your own home. So then, June of 1990, his next victim was a 27-year-old acquaintance of him named Edward Smith. Why are there a lot of Smiths here? He drugged and strangled him. But on this occasion, rather than acidifying the skeleton or repeating previous processes of bleaching, which had rendered previous victims' skulls brittle and Jeffery can't really use them, which Dahmer placed Smith's skeleton in his freezer for several months in hope that it wouldn't retain any moisture. But freezing didn't actually remove all the moisture, it just froze it. And then the skeleton of his victim would be acidified several months later. Then Dahmer, sadly, Jeffrey Dahmer destroyed the skull when he placed it in the oven to dry.
which caused it to explode. Jeffrey himself was later to inform police that he had felt rotten about Smith's murder as he had been unable to retain any parts of his body, which, wow, like, so what? Like, killing him wasn't enough. You had to, like, keep something from it. Like, use the other things that you have before you get new things. Then 3 months after that, stop! Sorry, she's going insane. Then, less than 3 months after that one, once again, he encountered a 22-year-old Chicago native named Ernest Miller. Miller agreed to accompany Dahmer to his apartment for $50 and upon further agreed to allow him to listen to his heart and stomach. When Dahmer attempted to perform oral sex upon Miller, he was informed, "That'll cost you extra." Whereupon Dahmer gave his intended victim a drink laced with sleeping pills. Where was I? Ernest Miller. Miller was a dance student. He accompanied out of a bookstore. September 24th, David Thomas, 22, encountered Dahmer near the Grand Avenue Mall. He was lured to the apartment with the promise of money for posing nude. When Thomas was rendered unconscious, Dahmer decided he wasn't my type. Nonetheless, Dahmer strangled Thomas, taking Polaroid pictures of the dismemberment process, but no remains were found. 1991, Curtis Straughter, 17, was again approached by Dahmer by a bus station near Marquette University, lured the young man into his apartment, where the youth was drugged and then handcuffed and strangled before being dismembered in the bathtub. His hands, skull, and genitalia parts were retained. April 7th, Roy Lindsay, 19, was the first victim who Dahmer did the drilling technique. It's a procedure in which Dahmer created, in which he drilled holes into the victim's skulls and then injected hydrochloric acid into the brain. According to Dahmer, Lindsay awoke after this practice, after which he was again rendered unconscious with a drink laced with sedatives, then strangled to death. Dahmer spent several weeks filleting Lindsay's body and tried to retain the skin. The skull was found following Dahmer's arrest. May 24th, Tony Anthony Hughes, Hogarth Hughes, that's, sorry, tangents. And this victim was a deaf mute, which means that since he couldn't hear, he couldn't speak. Once again, Dahmer lured him to the apartment with the promise of posing nude for money. And Hogarth Hughes was deaf. As he was deaf, he and Dahmer communicated using handwritten notes. He was then strangled on Dahmer's bedroom floor for 3 days before being dismembered. The only thing he retained from that one was his skull, which was later identified using dental records. May 27th, Conrad Sinethon was 14. The younger brother of the boy Dahmer assaulted in 1988. Sinethon was drugged and had hydrochloric acid injected into his brain before Dahmer left the youth unattended as he left his apartment to purchase an adult beverage. And I don't mean coffee. I made some sauce. Some lovely sauce. When he returned, he discovered that the young man was naked and disoriented in the street with 3 distressed young women attempting to assist him. They actually called the police, and whenever they arrived, Dahmer persuaded them that he and Sinethon were lovers and that the youth was not actually 14, but 19 and simply just intoxicated. But one of the women actually tried to stop the cop, the cops from leaving and stuff. One of them pulled them over to the side and said, "Something's not right here." And the cop looked her straight in the face and said, "Butt out of other people's business. This is handled. You don't have to do anything." And that, no. If something like that happened and I was a cop and someone said, "Hey, I don't think something's right," I would investigate further, But that's just me. When the police left, Dahmer led Sinethon back into his apartment, where he again injected him with hydrochloric acid, and that time it proved fatal. His head was retained in the freezer, and his body was then dismembered. Let's keep going. I got a few more. I got 4 more murders, 4 more victims to talk about, and then I will move on to his sentencing, which I already told you at the beginning. 16 life sentences. So I will tell you about his life in prison then. June 30th, Matt Turner, 20-year-old. On June 30th, Dahmer attended the Chicago Pride Parade, and at a bus stop, he encountered a 20-year-old named Matt Turner and persuaded him to accompany him to Milwaukee to pose for a photo shoot. Turner was then later drugged, strangled, and then dismembered in the bathtub. His head and internal organs were put in a freezer, and his torso subsequently placed in a 57-gallon steel drum that Dahmer purchased earlier. Was purchased a few weeks, 2 weeks afterwards, on July 12th. July 5th, Jeremiah Weinberger, 23, met Dahmer at a gay bar and agreed to accompany him to Milwaukee for the weekend. Dahmer used his drilling process and drilled through Weiner's skull and injected boiling water into the cavity this time. He later recalled Weiner's death to be exceptional, as he was the only victim who died with his eyes open. Weinberger's decapitated body was kept in the bathtub for a week before being dismembered. His torso was then placed in the 57-gallon drum. July 15th, Oliver Joseph Lacey, 24-year-old male, was a bodybuilding enthusiast. A bodybuilding enthusiast, which means that he had a nice body on him. He was lifting weights. He was very, very healthy. But Dahmer encountered him and enticed him into his apartment with the process of being paid for posing for pictures, which, with his physique that he had, then yeah, so what? Money for being photographed for being healthy, that's
pretty good money. But anyway, Lacey was then drugged and strangled with a leather strap before being decapitated, with his head and heart being placed in the refrigerator. His skeleton was retained to adorn one side of it, the private shrine of skulls and skeletons Dahmer was in the process of creating when he was then arrested 1 week later. Final victim on July 19th, 1991, was Joseph Arthur Baldholt, which was 25, Dahmer's last victim. Bardhoff was the father of 3 children from Minnesota who was looking to work in Milwaukee at the time of his murder. He was left on Dahmer's bed for 2 days following his murder before, on July 21st, being decapitated. Before on July 21st, he was decapitated. His head was then placed in the refrigerator and his torso was in the 57-gallon drum. So, in a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Wait, let me start at the beginning. These are just like the known ones. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wait, I'm sorry. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 known murders. So, let us Okay, so after his last victim, a week later he was actually arrested, and at his court hearing, he tried to plead insanity. But on February 15th, the court reconvened to hear the verdict, and Dahmer was ruled to be completely sane and not suffering from any mental disorder at the time of his arrest or during each of the 15 killings that he was, convicted of. Although in each count, 2 of the 12 jurors signed their dissent. On the first 2 courts, Dahmer was sentenced to life imprisonment plus 10 years, with the remaining 13 counts carrying a mandatory sentence of life imprisonment plus 70 years. The death penalty was not an option for Judge Graham to consider at the penalty phase, as Wisconsin had abolished capital punishment in 1853. Upon hearing of Dahmer's sentencing, his father Linnell and stepmother Shari requested to be allowed a 10-minute private meeting with their son before he was transferred to the Columbia Correctional Institution in Portridge to begin his actual sentencing, his 15 life sentencing, plus 150 years. That request was actually granted to them, and they actually went and saw them. The trio exchanged hugs and well wishes before Dahmer was escorted away. 3 months after his conviction in Milwaukee, Dahmer was extradited to Ohio to be tried for the murder of his first victim, Stephen Hicks. In a court hearing that lasted just 45 minutes, Dahmer again pleaded guilty to the charges and was sentenced to a 16th life term imprisonment on May 1st, 1992. Hang on, let me find my highlighter. Is this the one I've been using? That's the skinny one. I don't want the skinny one. I want a fat bitch. There it is. I feel like I should use tape. Should I use tape? I'm going to use tape. Yeah, I think it's super sharp. And then Hang on. See it. I don't know. Try to not break anything else, please. once I get the tape, I will talk about the imprisonment and his first year of life behind bars. So the first year, hang on. First year of his imprisonment, he was actually put in solitary confinement because people had concerns that due to his life sentences, his 16 life sentences plus 150 years, they were concerned of his physical safety. Which, it's their job to look after prisoners, but I'm not gonna say anything because they're doing their job. They're just trying to make sure that he actually serves his life terms, and if he dies, he dies. But at least he served his time. But then, with Dahmer's consent, after just 1 year in solitary confinement, he was then transferred to a less secure unit where he was assigned a 2-hour daily work detail, cleaning the toilet block. Cleaning the bathrooms. He was the janitor there. Hang on. Doing eyeliner, it's kind of hard. He was cleaning the toilet, he was the janitor there, but shortly after completing his lengthy confessions in 1991, Dahmer had requested to Detective Murphy that he be given a copy of the Bible. This request was granted to Jeffrey Dahmer. And then Dahmer gradually started to devote himself to Christianity and became a born-again Christian.
scales are uneven. That's fine. On his father's urging, he also read creationalist books from the Institution of Creation Research. And in May of 1994, Dahmer was baptized by Roy Ratcliffe. We're gonna go with it. Anyway, Roy Ratcliffe was a minister in the Church of Christ and a graduate of Oklahoma Christian University and in the prison whirlpool. Oh, those are pretty even. Okay, so let's continue this story.
Following his baptism, Radcliffe visited Dahmer on a weekly basis up until November of 1994. Dahmer and Radcliffe regularly discussed the prospect of death, and Dahmer questioned whether he was sinning against God by continuing to live. I'm not going to get into that because I'm not one to judge, and I'm not God. But if I was, I would. Referring to his crimes in 1994 in a 1994 interview with Stone Phillips on Dateline NBC, Dahmer had stated, and I quote, "If a person doesn't think that there is a God to be accountable to, then what's the point of trying to modify your behavior to keep it within respectable ranges? That's how I thought anyway," end quote. Then in July of 1994, a fellow inmate, Osvaldo Dorothy, attempted to slash Dahmer's throat with a razor embedded in a toothbrush, so a prison shiv. Don't ask how I know that. I won't tell if you don't know. If you don't want to, don't ask questions. He tried to slash Dahmer's throat with a prison shiv as Dahmer returned to his cell from Radcliffe's weekly church service conducted in the prison chapel. Dahmer received superficial wounds and was not seriously hurt in the incidents, but according to Dahmer's family, he had long been ready to die. They accepted any punishment which he might endure in prison. In addition to his father and stepmother maintaining regular contact, Jeffrey's mother, Joyce, also maintained regular contact with her son, although prior to his arrest, the two had not seen each other since Christmas of 1983. So, literally 10 years of not seeing each other, she decides, hey, I'm gonna see him in prison and not question anything. Anyway, Joyce related that in her weekly phone calls, whenever she expressed concerns for her son's physical well being, Dahmer Jeffrey Dahmer. Dahmer actually responded. He responded with comments to the effect of, and I quote, "It doesn't matter, Mom. I don't care if something happens to me," end quote. Which, it seems like that he actually is like atoning for his committed crimes and his sins, but then again, he killed multiple people, and he was just like a bad person. He also was apparently a cannibal. I didn't mention that, but he ate some of his victims' flesh. So yeah, that's lovely. So his death. On the morning of November 28th, 1994, Dahmer left his cell to conduct in his assigned work of detailing. Detailing like the toilets and stuff, cleaning the toilets. Oh, come on. Accompanying him were two fellow inmates, Jesse Anderson and Christopher Scarver. The trio were left unsupervised in the shower, which, yeah, lovely. And they were left unsupervised for approximately 20 minutes, and approximately at 8:10 a.m., Dahmer was discovered on the floor of the bathrooms of the gym, suffering from extreme head and facial wounds. And let me. There we go. Okay, facial wounds. He had been severely bludgeoned about the head and face with a 20-inch or 51 centimeter metal bar. His head had also been struck repeatedly against the wall in the assault. Although Dahmer was still alive and was rushed to a nearby hospital, he was pronounced dead 1 hour later. Anderson, who had also been beaten with the same instrument, had died 2 days later from his wounds. Scarver, who was the third inmate there that was accompanying them, he was actually serving a life sentence for a murder he committed in 1990. According to authorities, he had first attacked Dahmer with the metal bar as he was actually Dahmer. Dahmer was cleaning a staff locker room. Before attacking Anderson, as Anderson was cleaning an inmate locker room. According to Scarver, Dahmer did not yell or make any noise as he was attacked. Immediately after attacking both men, Scarver, who was thought to have schizophrenia, he was schizophrenic, returned to her cell and informed the prison guard, "God told me to do it. Jesse Anderson and Jeffrey Dahmer are dead." End quote. Scarborough was adamant he had not planned the attacks in advance, although he later divulged to investigators that he had concealed the 20-inch iron bar used to kill both men. Now, upon learning that Jeffrey was dead and he was killed by Scarborough, the inmate, his mother, Joyce, was like angry. She was responding angrily to media, saying, "Now is everyone happy now that he's bludgeoned to death? Is that good enough for everyone?" End quote. In response to the families that Dahmer had killed, the families of Dahmer's victims, like the response from them were mixed and stuff, with, you know, like rightfully so they were mixed, because they have lost their sons and like their husbands and their partners, and now this person is dead and his mother is angry and he's sad, and she's sad that she lost her, not only a child but her firstborn. Anyway, I'm not pitying him. It's just perspective, you know. There. So let's continue. The district attorney who had prosecuted Dahmer cautioned against turning Scarborough into a folk hero, which rightfully so. He murdered someone the year prior, and now he murdered 2 inmates, and then that was like added on to his already life sentence, which I think that he got his possibility of parole revoked. Which, once again, people, don't kill people. Don't do it. Don't even think about doing it, because it's bad. You know, like it's bad, and a lot of people would be sad and angry, and you will get caught. You will get caught. Just saying. There we go. Anyway. Noting that Dahmer's death was still a murder, but on May 15th, 1995, Scarborough was sentenced to additional terms of life imprisonment for both the murders. So, although Scarborough initially confessed in 1994 of having concealed the weapon, in an interview in 2015, he publicly stated the murders of Dahmer and Anderson had been resulted from a confrontation in which one of the 2 men had provoked him in the back. As the 3 had begun their assigned work detail, in which this renewed account of events, Scarborough claimed that the 2 had laughed at him when he had turned around in response before Dahmer and Anderson each walked to separate rooms to begin their cleaning duty, which Scarborough first followed Dahmer towards the staff locker room. So, yeah. On August 5th, 1991, as the nature of Dahmer's crimes came to like the limelight, a candlelight vigil was held in Milwaukee, like the whole entire Milwaukee community. and that was attended by more than 400 people. Present at the virtual were community leaders, gay rights activists, and family members of several victims of Dahmer. Organizers stated the purpose of the visual was to enable Milwaukeeans to share their feelings of pain and anger over what had happened. So, Jeffrey Dahmer, lovely serial killer. So, the Oxford Apartments at 924 North 25th Street, that was where Dahmer had killed 12 of his victims, was actually demolished in November of 92. I can't find the plastic sleeve. Did I put it over here? Where did that go? Oh my god. I don't know. I usually have it in here and I can't find it. It's just like the plastic sleeve that I put in here to like protect the shadows a little bit, and also so that we have the names. Found it. It's underneath. Anyway. Demolished in 1992. The site is now a vacant lot. Alternative plans to convert it into either a memorial garden, a playground, or to reconstruct new housing have failed to materialize. In hindsight, I think that you should go with the memorial garden and stuff, you know. Jeffrey's estate was awarded to the families of his victims who had sued for damages, which pretty damn good. Linnell Dahmer is retired and now lives with his second wife, Shari. Both have refused to change their surname and have professed their love of Dahmer in spite of his crimes. In 1994, Linnell published a book, A Father's Story, and donated a portion of the proceeds of his book to the victims' families. Most of the families showed support for Linnell and Shari, although 3 families subsequently sued Linnell, 2 for using their names in the book without obtaining prior consent, and a 3rd family, that of Stephen Hicks, filing a wrongful death suit against Linnell, Shari, and former wife Joyce, citing parental negligence as the cause of the claim. Which, pretty damn good. Joyce Flint actually died of cancer in November of 2000. Prior to her death, she had attempted suicide on at least one occasion. Dahmer's younger brother David changed his surname and lives in Infinity. So, please don't go looking for these people. Don't go looking for the victims' families and ask them about it, because it's, even though that happened 30 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, it still has a bunch of bad memories, and I'm sure that their families have talked about it and stuff with their children and stuff, just hey, you don't know this person, but this is actually your uncle and so.
Like it's disrespectful for going after and like looking for them. So please don't do that. Don't go looking for David since he wants to remain anonymous and live his life. Yeah, you know. So that is Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm actually going to finish up here and then sign off. So let's actually dip into no beans. You know what? I can talk a little bit more. Yeah, I'm again. Please also don't idolize these people that I talk about and stuff. Like, if you do idolize them, please get better idols. There are many people that are better than them that don't involve, like killing people as a means of becoming famous and stuff. Good thing I'm almost done since my family is being rude. Ruby, shut up! So, yeah. I'm not gonna do lashes. It's too much work. But I will highlight. And I will do a. Oh, I already got it. Like, it's just. I can also do like a drawing of, like the next episode. So that way I have like the story down and it wasn't like all over the place. What? No, I haven't.
I'm gonna have to edit the shit out of this.
Don't idolize serial killers. That's all I gotta say. So that's it about Jeffrey Dahmer. Let's actually draw for the next person. Amazing little girl hat. Not looking. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Next one. Let's actually do not that one. This one. And then there we go. Yeah. Okay, so next person would be Barbara Daly Bicklate. Thank you for watching. I love y'all. Make good choices. Don't idolize serial killers. And goodbye.